This week on the VC React podcast, Meta's billion-dollar hiring offers. Is that smart, desperate, or just the new normal in AI? Meta is building a new AI one engineer at a time. With all those engineers, what could they be building? Callo extended at Series B to feed you with AI and go global. How can AI personalize your meals? Also, why extend the B round instead of raising a new or even a bridge round? Does that signal high demand from investors, or does it mean they were overvalued last year? Sawt raised $1 million in pre-seed capital to build Arabic voice AI for call centers. Is this the next big AI niche, or is voice still a hard nut to crack? And can a new AI native startup compete with existing players like Moqsam, which has just announced a similar product? And finally, Lean and others get the UAE's open banking blessing. What's the most exciting application or applications for this, and why? Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the VC React podcast. Every week, we bring you insights and reactions from top VCs, LPs, and angel investors, reacting to the latest news on startups, VCs, and investment rounds. Let's jump into it with our guests for today. Mian Manoff, founding partner at Claim Capital. Philipe Moura, founder and CEO at Vinci Ventures and chairman of FDC Angels. Santiago Rojas, managing partner at Meridian 75 by Cube Ventures and MKF Group. And my co-host Jamie Lynn from FWDstart. In the video description, you can find more details on our guests, the LinkedIn profiles, and links to their companies' websites.
We are delighted to welcome our new presenting sponsor, Milkstraw.ai. Great founders build world-changing companies, and they do it by being relentlessly efficient. They obsess over every dollar spent, and the smartest investors back the ones who make every resource count to drive the biggest outcomes. That's why so many founders use Milkstraw.ai. It finds hidden savings in your AWS bills, sometimes up to 75%, freeing up capital for growth, hiring, or simply building faster. See how much you could save in 60 seconds and how much further your runway can go at milkstraw.ai.
This episode is brought to you by Okta, the AI-powered finance automation platform built for modern businesses. Managing receivables is not one task. It's dozens of repetitive ones. Correcting invoice details, updating PO numbers, following up on payment status. It's operationally critical, but painfully manual.
Okta changes that. It helps you automate your financial operations, starting with accounts receivable, so you can focus on what you're actually good at, growing your business. From contract to cash, Okta's AI agents handle everything: invoice creation, reminders, dispute resolution, payment tracking, reconciliation, even financing. You don't need to learn how to use Okta. Okta learns how you work. It adapts to your SOPs and existing workflows to get the job done. Finance teams at Cream, Lean Technologies, and Outgram rely on Okta to reduce admin time, speed up collections, and unlock flow.
If you've heard of them before, you know that they used to say 100 companies use Okta. The number is now 500. They are moving fast. And that kind of growth only happens because the problem is real and the solution actually works. Automate the finance work that slows you down. See how at weareokta.com. Our weekly news are brought to you by FWDstart, a twice-weekly newsletter that breaks down what's happening in the MENA startup, VC, and tech space. Hi, Jamie. The talent war is not ending yet, and actually it's expanding, and we're seeing much bigger numbers. What's happening?
Yeah, and look, if the way the market has responded to this news is any sort of indication, then it shows. I can't imagine it's going to slow down anytime soon either. Record earnings in Q2 for Meta as well, up about 22% year on year. Share price is up 11% today. Like in terms of revenue for Q2, I mean, it's $47.52 billion. So look, they can afford it. They can afford it, is what I would say.
They can. But these are crazy numbers, right? Just tell us the numbers.
They're mind-boggling. Yeah, they're absolutely mind-boggling. So look, in recent weeks, we've covered, obviously, they're poaching Apple, OpenAI, Anthropic, you name it, and now they're actually trying to poach pre-product Thinking Machines Lab, Miradi's spin-off, who just raised a 2 billion seed round of all things relatively recently, and some of the offers, as you mentioned, Ahmed, are just like they're staggering. And we sort of speculated a couple of weeks back, what's the structure of this? We were talking about 100 million. We said, okay, how many years is this spread over? What does that time horizon look like? And look, we've a small bit more clarity as far as this is concerned based on some of these offers. And I should mention this is based on a report by Wired, who did some fantastic reporting of late as far as the sort of AI talent splurge is concerned. One of those offers is over $1 billion over a multi-year span from one particular individual. The rest between 200 and 500 million over 4 years. So we speculated, okay, 100 million, but that's over maybe 5 or 6 years. As it turns out, I mean, you're getting 125 million per year. It's just extraordinary, really, on one level. And in terms of the first year, some staff were guaranteed to make between 50 and 100 million. Now, apparently, Thinking Machine Labs, no one has taken one of these offers as of yet.
Okay.
But will they wilt in the face of such an enormous amount of money? Remains to be seen.
Okay, so $1 billion package for an AI talent. Again, is this smart, desperate, or just the new normal in AI? I mean, if you build a company, you would wish the company to get to $1 billion valuation, and your cut will not be $1 billion, right? You maybe end up with 10%, 15% maximum of the company's equity at the end when there's $1 billion exit. But this is guaranteeing you $1 billion over a few years.
I think it's very interesting news. Actually, me and another a friend just talked about this hiring a couple of weeks ago. And I think one trend from the market is tech giants from the shoes of Mark Zuckerberg. Their first is a formal action. He really want to catch up with the speed about how they release their own internal AI innovation to catch up the speed of the market. And he's make major competitors. Second of all, I think the companies like Mark Zuckerberg he's running right now, they realize a lot of times at the end, their buying companies is talent hire. So they just cut off the format of M&A in AI format. Is they just want to hire the key person. Then might be from company's value point, they might save some time and money by hiring the talent directly instead of acquire a company they're gonna build in a couple of years. That's just the saying, and it's crazy to see all this number. And there's a funny comparison between become a chief AI scientist for Meta or be a football superstar like Cristiano Ronaldo. We compare the package they get every year and all the effort they put in. It seems like it's a really good deal for the AI scientists. Yeah.
It makes sense. So you think that instead of buying the company at the end of the day, you're just buying the team. So why not get the team from now and skip that whole acquisition thing?
I love this kind of news, Ahmad and Jamie. I've been looking at it I've been collecting those stories. I actually do have a folder with just a bunch of news related to that massive spike in the cost of AI talent. It's been going on for a few years, and I think I really like Mia's point that we should start comparing them to the soccer players and the other football stars because at the end of the day, this is payback. Well, sadly, it won't go to the same people, but it's sort of payback for the people that were doing AI research in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, in the very dark rooms of labs and the last rooms in the computer science departments when nobody cared about them and there was no money to fund those researches, right? So now it's a sort of payback in terms of opportunity. But
we hope those are the same people because I'm assuming they're taking the younger ones. I don't know. I hope not.
It is the younger one. So sadly, it's like the artist that's not acknowledged in their lifetime, but at least the next generation is somewhat. And I agree. It is a war for talent, absolutely. And while we see on one hand that these big tech companies are managing somewhat to get that top talent, we see that a lot of traditional companies are struggling, but even beyond them, governments and regulators are having there was a news story at Wired, I think at some point last year, called Regulators Need AI Expertise. They can't afford it. And they went into long detail about this salary wars and how it's been increasingly hard for governments to actually bring to them this sort of expertise. And I don't think this is going to stop now. And a lot of these talents are actually saying no to this multi-million, sometimes billion-dollar packages. So I guess my question in that sense would be, how can the rest of the market, the rest of us scrapping for the leftovers, how can we offer them purpose? How can we offer them mission? And on the other side of the equation, how can we foster that new talent? How can we start help develop, especially in a decentralized manner, outside of the very obvious locations that I'm going to skip mentioning, but how can we foster that talent elsewhere in the world?
In emerging markets, how can we do that? Santiago, you're in Colombia. What do you think?
So I tried to dig a little bit more, and I was looking at Q2 Meta's report, and they said that the CFO reported that they put $60 billion into non-marketable equity investments, or sort of code for VC investments directly. And Alexander Wang, popped up. They invested $14 billion for 49% of Scale AI, and then now Alexander Wang is the new chief AI at the Superintelligence. That's the new name Zuckerberg is giving the project. And for me, of course, compensation, $100 million is crazy. But for me, Alexander Wang has, is, even though he's not receiving those 14 billion that's going into the company, that's the amount of money that's actually coming into recruiting top talent. And Scale AI was just valued at $14 billion last year. They're not outright, they're not buying Scale AI outright because of FTC concerns, because they are involved in lots of various antitrust processes. And for me, it's of course that the hiring of one person is sounds incredible, but this amount of money going in just to recruit top talent talks about what's the challenge there. And I want to give an echo to Philipe's point. How can the rest of the world sort of catch up and be relevant and have not only inside of the AI value chain, large language models, labeling, optimization, but then also packaging into enterprise and consumer solutions? It seems that the top AI startups in Latin America, for example, are mainly packaging and adapting these sort of reservoirs of data and these huge LLMs into specific applications, specific uses for the end client. And even though that's great, it's not enough. We need more DeepSeeks. Where is the Latin American DeepSeek? Where is the African or MENA DeepSeek or equivalent, where we don't only just pool resources into these specific players, but how do we pull that into the rest and sort of redistribute? Because this is a different scale. This is an echo of pandemic in 2021, 2022. The hiring frenzy for devs across the entire spectrum was on fire, and then that died down at the junior level or to the mid level, and now we're seeing this incredibly high and sophisticated talent attracting so much of investment dollars. My question is, how do you move that and transfer that to other regions?
And this takes me to another question. So maybe, Philipe, you manage an angel group and you focus on AI. Actually, if you can tell us about the t-shirt. But let's flip the lens now. If you are a VC in AI right now, how do you underwrite this retention risk when a startup's whole team could be gone in a weekend because a bigger company is taking them all? How can you manage that as an investor?
I was hoping you'd ask that question. But let me start with the t-shirt first. So Abria is Brazil's AI association. I was part of the first executive team there. I was VP there for 5 years. I've been their advisor for a little while now. And we've been talking about AI in AI startups and AI developers in Brazil for roughly 8 years now. So it's been a while. So many years before the launch of ChatGPT. So we've actually, as an association, we've been doing a very intentional work of trying to raise awareness, trying to develop talent, trying to support discussions on public policy and regulation on AI, which of course has many aspects of it which go beyond this is allowed or this is forbidden, right? We need to start talking about education. We need to start talking about talent. We need to start talking about government's role in also being a user of AI solutions to actually make government faster, more cost efficient for the citizens. But as a VC, there's basically three ways of looking at it from my perspective. One, sort of an open-ended question, which is, where does this bidding war start? Well, we know how it starts. We don't know how it ends, right? So how sustainable is that approach to high dollar poaching for big tech? I don't have an answer for that, but which is why it's an open-ended question. But on the other side, as a VC myself, when we look at the numbers, and I was actually looking at the numbers for this earlier this week, we've had a little over $100 billion in deals in VCs from around the world. And while this may seem like a slight increase from the first half of 2024, when we look semester by semester, 24, 25, I think it was like a 5 to 10% increase or something like that. When we actually take out the mega deals from OpenAI, from Scale AI, and a few others, we actually are talking about a lot less money. And even the money that is out there is much more concentrated. So this is becoming a sort of we are transitioning to a mega deal scenario within VC. And I think Amy Webb talks about this. She talks about the first super cycle in technology, which is being powered by AI. And I guess VCs and companies are just betting on that. So if you see something emerging in that scenario, put your money in there, especially if they're developing their own tech. So I think in our last episode, Ahmad, I talked about the deep tech thesis of investment in AI. I still hold very strongly that opinion. And my bet would be verticalized models. So not the thin wrapper, which takes an existing LLM and just, puts a skin on top of that and offers it, but from the actual development side. And another thing, which is a more open-ended comment, we need to think about the digital stack, which AI is a part of, in its more broad scale. So when we're talking about startups, we are usually looking at the very traditional B2B software as a service or AI as a service, yada, yada. But we need to also look at innovative or in robust solutions in software, in cloud, in IoT and devices, in networks, in chip manufacturing, and in critical resources. AI is like the very tip of that big stack, but it's a massive part of the stack, by the way. But we have all those areas which are part of the AI stack or AI ecosystem that we as investors should and could also be looking at. Energy, for instance, which is why a lot of these big tech companies are buying nuclear power plants, right?
Okay, Mian, how do you make sense of all this as an investor, as someone who also helps other investors find these companies? How can those companies compete in this talent war market for AI talent, and what should they focus on? And how, as an investor, how do you underwrite this new risk?
That's a very good question. To unwrap the question a little bit, we had the discussion with my network, with my LPs, and also our peer, investors as well. It really depends on the bottom of the strategy. Like each player in the market have their own a value proposition and strategy. And to anchor back a little bit, we look at hardwares of AI as well. So you see, it's a lot of times people were talking about the machine learning, the model development, the application layer, and also whether a company have the ability actually to tweak the AI a little bit to build their own engine. But on top of everything here, AI also a massive market for data. We also have cloud computing. We also have the data processing. That's a lot of knots in the system. As a investor, sometimes we have our internal view as well. Just measure quick anchor points for last year. So last year we're looking at also different deals, even including some private rounds for OpenAI. But at the same time, we also see Taiwan as a stock market is such a great engine as well for now it's also the dilemma for VC. It's like where we can pocket our money to make the capital more efficient. Seeing the overall stock market who engines some part of the growth of AI market, or we channel all our efforts into actually Sawt and Pepper, put into a lot of investment to different founders to actually foster the new wave of generation of AI talent growth. That's so we always have the ratio to understand, we always park our capital into some a better growth of the market. For instance, some big tech stocks or some private rounds, we park our money as a bet. And the alpha comes from our VC's expertise into growth tiers, growth engine for the market. And I think that's the charm of this AI age. It's it's not takes five decades to grow a talent in AI. All the talents growing younger and younger. It's about support them, find them, great environment to help them grow. Back to the football a comparison as well. It's you need the whole market to have tons of people play with AI, code AI at a really young age. And you can allow people started their Alexander Wang. He started his company when he's a teenager. It takes a really different eagerness to build a successful AI startup as before. Now I think as a VC with knowledge and network, we should really help to bring all this resource to younger generations to help build and also join the AI age.
Before we move to the next story, Jamie, do we know, is there in the market any rumors of what Meta is building with all these engineers?
No, it was very vague. Mark Zuckerberg released a letter yesterday sort of outlining the vision for super intelligence, but there was no specifics as far as exactly what that exactly is going to entail. There is rumors though that obviously Llama thus far has been open source first. It seems like they're going to be reversing stance on that and it's going to be more of a closed loop system. But that's all we know so far in terms of what that actually looks like from a product perspective, etc. Unclear as of yet. But
No one knows.
I'm sure we'll hear soon.
We'll get some news soon, of course.
One last thing. I think your last question left me thinking. In capital expenditures in corporate, Fortune 500 in the U.S., I'm reading right now, $320 billion combined was invested. While compared to what Philipe just said, that $100 billion went into VC space. So I think that's where you start seeing that when the funding environment is less funded than the hiring and infrastructure, and when Mark Zuckerberg says the second biggest expenditure in AI is talent, I think it's the natural next step. People are going to, these sort of football players are going to come as a result from that. The question is what's the next thing? What's once that sort of box is full, where's the next bucket going to be invested in? Where's it going to go? And my bet is going to go into VC again.
I look forward to having a Meta jersey with Alexander Wang on the back in due course. I'm sure it's only a matter of time.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so Jamie, what's next for us?
Yeah, let's talk Callo for the second time this year because they've announced a Series B extension. I'm a big fan of Callo personally. I look forward to returning to Abu Dhabi in a few weeks and resuming my subscription. So I'm somewhat biased as far as that's concerned. But yeah, it's a big extension as well. It dwarfs the initial Series B. So it's a $39 million extension led by Al Jazeera Capital, Saudi-based, bringing the total Series B to $64 million. As I mentioned, it's a $25 billion. Sorry, I'm used to talking in billions now from our talk about Meta. I'm struggling to adapt to the new reality of emerging market investment. I know, and you say something, but this is a big round as well, relatively speaking. So that was in December 2024. Anyone who participated in that they've also rejoined here. So you've Nua Capital led that round, Corzini Ventures, STV, and you have a new investor as well in RSA Capital, who we've had Julian and Elliot on the show in the past as well. So they've managed to worm their way in there also. The original, they had earmarked that this was going to be the case, that there was going to be a Series B extension in that actual initial announcement. However, they did say it was going to be an additional 25 million. So they've eclipsed that. They've extended it out until 39 million. So why that's the case, obviously, it seems to have been very oversubscribed, seems to be a ton of interest in it. And it's unsurprising on one level. Since they announced that, they have entered the European market through the acquisition of 2 UK-based companies, Fresh Fitness Food and Detox Kitchen. They've launched there, seem to be doing quite well so far. And then invariably, there's an AI product announcement as well, which you referenced at the top of the show, Ahmed. So this is what they're calling Callo Black. It's going to be an AI-powered private chef experience. Uses LLMs to capture customer preferences, generate personalized daily menus. I've seen, I think, a brief demo of this that Ahmed, the CEO, I think he posted or published to LinkedIn like a couple of months back, and it looked pretty cool. Kind of reminds me, recently Kareem launched their sort of quick commerce thing where you can write in, what you want to order for your groceries, and then it'll sift through the app and add it all to your cart, which is one of those sort of, very useful sort of use cases for AI. They've also opened up physical locations as well, which I think is interesting. So they have 10 physical locations now across the GCC. Also hospital-based outlets, which I think, again, is a very interesting one. And they are due to launch in Oman pretty soon as well. I think they have a wait list of about 5,000 people there already. So yeah, bullish on Callo.
Yeah,
bullish on Callo.
that's amazing. So food or meal planning and meal delivery. What do you think? What's your general reactions? Do you have similar companies in your own markets, and what happened to them? How did they grow?
Yeah, I actually found interesting companies in the region. My fellow GP of Meridian 75, our VC fund, he's an angel investor, and he's been really active in the region. And one of his investments is called Foodology. Foodology, I was checking, raised over $30 million so far from A16Z and similar. And they're basically in the digital brands and cloud kitchen space. So what they do is they have 10 different brands, and people are buying through platforms and through last mile delivery platforms, but there isn't a physical space. And that's their efficiency, that from one cloud kitchen you can service 10 different brands and sort of package the same or similar food and the same team to support that process. And I was looking at the comparatives. There was this slew of startups 2 years back. Some of them got into YC as well, in Latin America on a subscription-based meal plan. And all of that sort of fell through. It didn't scale and didn't sustainably grow because clients got tired. They sort of switched from one meal to another. And in our portfolio, Meridian 75, we're managed by 2 funds, by Cube Ventures and by MKF. And Cube Ventures has 100 companies in its portfolio, and one of it's called Restit. One of our startups was mainly focused in the food sector, and the great challenge was the speed where restaurants change, where consumer tendencies change, and where that sort of recurring experience gets old pretty fast. So I mean, it's really interesting how maybe those the cultural differences don't translate, and what doesn't work here works in GCC or in the MENA region. But I was seeing we haven't had a successful company like this one in the continent.
But hey, Santiago, wouldn't the AI component that personalizes meals for you help maybe address some of the issues with, the boredom of the same meals?
Sure, definitely. My question is on the back end, the logistics. How do you personalize? I mean, I understand the AI understanding the consumer, but how do you go back and deliver on those variations in the kitchen? I guess they have a wonderful logistics system behind bars as well.
I love that question, Santiago, and I think a lot of the non-obvious winners in this very beginning of the AI race that we are seeing are going to be companies that go phygital. They combine the physical element with the digital world. And if you can create a process that translates well from one side to the other and also the other way around, right? You can suggest recipes, but then you have to change your logistics on the way back. But also I have this app in my phone that allows me to take a picture of my fridge and then create recipes from whatever leftover I have. So it's both ways, right? It's from online to digital to offline, and offline to online as well. And I don't know who's going to be able to do that well. I really like FoodTech as a thesis for investment. I myself invest in 2 of them here in Brazil. And meal delivery, not meal subscription, is huge in Brazil, right? So
Many MENA, by the way, yeah, for delivery, we had Talabat, and Talabat went public with a $10 billion valuation in Dubai. Yeah, Mian, what do you think?
This is a very interesting news, and to make comparison, I just look up the valuation of Uber's Series B about like 14 years ago. It's also like 37 million, very similar like data for the price wise. But I think Anchor Sergio's like points is very subject to the market preference. The context of the food tech is really subject to what is marketing to right now. I think like we mentioned a few cases. It's like there's like meal subscription, and there's also like a food substitute, and there's a huge trend for a lot of people like doing like a more like health conscious, personalized food or drink experiences. Especially US, like they're more and more like maybe smoothies a big hits, maybe like a collages, like a nutrition drink is getting more and more attraction for the energy take, not for the experience. So that's the few cases I think is very interesting to look as a investor in the food space, but not the huge food tech. And we mentioned about like food delivery over food tech is also food delivery is another interesting market right now. Is China. It's old food delivery big giants in China has been around for maybe 7-8 years or even 10 years. Now everyone's getting more and more intensely, fiercely competing each other. And for the end consumer, you can get like a meal after all the coupon add up. You can get like a $2 delivered to your face home for like a one whole meal. And that's just like a very different trend. But Callo is a very interesting case, and we are going to take more like look and crush more data in the MENA region about such delivery service. It looks like a very attractive market.
I should mention on Callo as well, regarding, I suppose, the customization side of things. They already very much have that, which is interesting. So this AI sort of additional component, they actually have incredible flexibility in terms of the meals. So obviously, if your sort of selection based on the plan, like to your point, man, there in terms of, whether it be high protein diet, etc., you can pick your base one, integrate it with your wearable device, be it a Fitbit or an Apple Watch, etc., to track calorie expenditure, that kind of thing. But then with regard to, you can go with the pre-existing options, you can tweak them or customize them however you see fit, add, take away, subtract, create from scratch already. So in terms of the, I guess, the flexibility as far as the offering is concerned, it's pretty good. So I'm interested to see how this sort of Callo Black functionality actually differs on one level.
Jamie, as a loyal customer, we've seen multiple companies doing that, even in Jordan, but they never succeeded. What do you think Callo did right or figure out that others didn't?
It's extraordinarily crowded, like especially in the UAE context. I mean, in terms of trying to wrap your head around which provider to go with, I mean, I feel like there's easily maybe 20 players in the market. I suppose where Callo stands out is the quality on one level. Like it's the nicest food that I've tasted. Like as far as meal plans, generally you kind of go, okay, meal plan, it's, it's healthy, it's good for you, but it's bland. Like that's generally sort of the association that you have. This tastes really bloody good. Really good, highly reliable, like from a logistics perspective. It says it arrives at 8 p.m, etc. Between 8 and whatever, it arrives exactly then. The packaging is nice. Just the entire experience, I think, is fantastic. The app itself is super intuitive, incredibly easy to use. Their fantastic loyalty program as well, obviously in terms of a sliding scale as far as subscription is concerned. If you're price sensitive, going for a weekly plan, it is quite expensive, I would say. If you go for a monthly, it makes more sense. Go for 3 months, it makes more sense. They have a sort of subscription offering as well, which drastically sort of reduces it down. You pay on sort of like a monthly or an annual basis, and that helps bring things down. You've Callo points. So really, it sort of just kind of integrates into your life on one level, and then it's sort of hard to go without it. Like that's very much what I found being at home. You're kind of like, what do I eat? Like you don't have to think about it. So that's what's unusual. So look, I think it's logistics, it's the presence of kitchens and all the sort of the main cities and hubs, and it's the reliability, which is terrific. I feel like I need to get a discount for this.
Of
course.
You're not paying anything for it.
No, this is ridiculous. I put my Callo referral code in description. Sign up for, I don't know, you get something off probably.
Okay, Callo, you have to sponsor the show now.
Please.
A question to all the VCs here now. You've heard a loyal customer talk about this company, unpaid. How can such a company scale operations this big and keep that quality with all this personalization and customization that they do? It's really amazing that they're doing all that. What do you think? How can they do that?
My first reaction is I would take that as a very serious risk of operational dilution, right? You grow too much, you do too much, and you eventually you could lose the promises that you made for your very loyal consumers from the start. But hearing Jamie, I've heard as a loyal customer, unpaid loyal customer, right? As you said, I've heard something that really makes me excited for the FoodTech as a not Callo specifically, but as an investor in FoodTechs, is it's this one thing that I perhaps could call eating food that your grandparents probably would have eaten back in the day. You know, real food that tastes like real food, that is more nutritional because it is real food. It's not a food-like substance, which is what we see in a lot of the ultra processed goods that we see in the supermarket aisle, right? And perhaps if they can stay true, if they manage to stay true to that, even as they become more operationally complex to run, I think there'll be some hit or miss every now and then. But if they remain true to that, no, this is real food that tastes like real food. This is authentic. This is made by actual people, and is personalized just for you in a way that only AI really can do. So if they can maintain that human touch, that human connection, the connection to what is natural, even as they grow, they should be probably sourcing locally. They should be probably, I read this thing the other day, and this was a figure for Brazil. It was something like humans can eat over 30,000 different species of plants. And most of us in our lifetime, we will only have like between 50 and 100 at maximum. So why aren't we, just using more of what's around us? And you can probably do that, pay less, have a smaller carbon footprint, and deliver actual, customized food. But to do that, you probably need to get to know the customer well, and you'll do that because of the algorithm, right? So I think it's a big bet, but I love it if they make it work.
Yeah, and so far they served more than 10 million meals, so they're doing something right. Before I move to the next story, when you see a Series B extension, does it signal that, hey, the company has high demand from investors, especially that there's 7 months in between those two rounds? Or do you think they were overvalued and now more investors are interested because they proved that they can do something bigger but at the same valuation? What does an extension mean? Knowing that they mentioned there will be an extension for the Series B, but in general, what do you think?
For me, there's so many factors behind a round that end up obfuscating a little bit the understanding of how it works. For a long time here, for a long time during the interest rates were pretty high, people just would raise $100 million and just not announce it. Like they were so worried that they might be a year down the road or 6 months down the road, they would have problems with burn rate. And they would just prefer to stay quiet. Or people announcing seed extension to $1 million. So I think if they're launching and being very public with that announcement, I'm pretty sure that does mean that they had extra demand, but that didn't materialize in the last portion. And I'm pretty sure that means they must be ramping up for a bigger next round. Usually maybe they were trying to raise a series. Well, there was a Series B, right? Maybe they're trying to raise a Series C,
that was
and they got enough capital to do a first close and say, okay, we're doing an extension of the last one, but they're preparing a Series C in the works. And this is a fraction of what they were planning to raise. So many things happen behind closed doors.
Indeed. Anything else to add?
I don't see it as a showstopper, but it's definitely a yellow flag. I would probably need to look at the documents and talk to the people who committed first and get their feeling on it. It doesn't matter if we say otherwise, and we now have an AI that does investments without any human intervention, right? We saw that a few months ago, but I still think this is a very human network-based sort of industry. I would talk to them, like, point blank ask, why is this? Was this a change of your scenario? Was it a change in the economics? Is it you think you can do more if you raise more? What's the fundamentals? And then, I think it's a case by case. And the reason why I'm saying this is because it's a Series B, so it's definitely a company that's proven that they know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
But if you had asked the same question for a company at a super early stage, if this was a pre-seed, especially, and a seed, I think that flag would be at least orange, because it be showing that they haven't done their homework properly.
Jamie, take us from food AI to voice AI. What's happening with Sawt?
Yeah, I was going to ask you for the pronunciation of this, Ahmad, before I humiliate myself, as I frequently do with the more Arabic name. So Sawt, all right?
Sawt. Sawt means voice.
Makes sense. I like it. It's yeah. As we mentioned, Saudi-based startup, AI native voice call systems. So a while back we had obviously STV announced their big $100 million AI fund with Google, which is all very exciting. This is the first company that they've backed out of that. So it's a pre-seed round. They also had T2 who participated in this as well. And yeah, Arabic language voice agents. Voice agents are everywhere. They're proliferating, certainly in a Silicon Valley context. But I think we still have a pretty limited number of players in from a MENA perspective, which is surprising. But as you mentioned off the top, Ahmed, we have said Maxam had their AI product suite demo day yesterday, which was super exciting. So this is going to be a competitive space, I think, over the course of the next couple of years, in terms of who's going to come out on top here. Relatively recently launched with us. It was only founded earlier this year. The models themselves have been built in-house, obviously tailored to Gulf dialects as well, of which there are many. It's one of those surprising things when you come from somewhere like Ireland and you're like, okay, everyone speaks Arabic, and you discover that everyone speaks a different kind of Arabic, and all of the dialects are somewhat intelligible to each other, depending on where you're coming from. You can correct me on this, Ahmed, but that's certainly what I've heard from Arabic speakers. But it only launched 2 months ago. In that time, apparently it's powered hundreds of thousands of customer voice interactions as well, across a number of different businesses. They have a pretty cool video launch promo as well that I recommend checking out. Always appreciate a good video launch. They're few and far between in MENA for the most part, but this one's pretty cool. Well done.
And Jamie, they were very smart in getting investment from T2, because T2 is a big enterprise service provider, and they sell so many services and products to startups and other companies. Yeah, it's a big
Distribution.
Yeah. And for some reason, they have Sella, which is the Shopify of the MENA region. They have Sella on their website as a client now, which is huge.
We'll take that.
Yeah,
Take that. We'll take that at free seed.
And it's pre-seed. Yeah, it's weird. So here's my question. We've got Maxam, which is the established call center player in the MENA region. Maxam just rolled out its AI voice, and now we have Sawt shows up just 2 months ago with an AI native product, an instant traction through the T2 partnership. Who's got the edge here? The incumbent going AI, or the new kid that built the AI first company from day one?
I think it's very interesting to see, and it definitely seems like it's a very strategic move for the investor behind this deal as well. Funny enough, this is like I will say that this is everything we see in the world of like SaaS, maybe 10 years ago, 20 years, 10 years ago, maybe. It's just exactly happening with acceleration with AI technology. So it's never heard about this news before you share with me before the podcast. I think it's a very interesting case. And as a pre-seed round, I'm just very curious to see like how the product gonna turn out, and how the other ecosystem player in the pipeline gonna adopt the product. Is all sounds like a very exciting to look.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like it's a pre-seed company, honestly. Right, Jane?
Yeah, it's
It seems
actually
like
like
a seed
very
company
mature.
at least.
Yeah, I'm just wonder why they probably wanted the strategic partnership with T2 or some other like companies in the ecosystem. And the product has been the team has been around since 2019, so it has been pretty long time. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm conflicted. On one hand, I've been doing digital inclusion policies for many years, or at least, in that general market. And one of the big points about digital inclusion is not just the fact that you have it available near you, as in you have a literal connection and a phone that you can use it to connect to something, but that you have locally relevant content. And the way that you do that is, you need to be able to speak the local dialect. You need to be able to consume and replicate local content and so on. So on one hand, I think this is super, super critical. If you want to bring more people into this new age of information, this new age of digitalization. But from a VC standpoint, I am surprised, first of all, with the amount of this first pre-seed round. If they're a deep tech, it might be consistent, but at the same time, doing the customization for accents, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is I've done it recently with one of the companies in my portfolio. They are an LLM, and a built from scratch LLM, but to customize it for local idioms and regionalisms within Brazil, of which there are many in a country this size, right? It was just a fine tuning over an existing model. It was the company's existing model, but it was just a fine tuning. And we see over, every month or so, a new Brazilian AI is announced, which is just fine tuning over something existing. It's much cheaper. It's much faster. And the reason why it gets me conflicted is because I'm not saying it's not needed. On the contrary, I think it's very important to have it, as I mentioned in my first point. But I would like to see it first as a business, to show that you have the economics to make it work, and to show that you can do it with fine tuning first. And once you prove that you're relevant, once you prove you have a market, then you can fundraise and then build your own tech from scratch. But just to be able to say that something solves for an actual problem, you don't need to build the whole technology from scratch, is what I'm getting at. So I'm very curious to see what their next steps are going to be.
Yeah, and if you look at their website, it says that it doesn't just answer your questions, it goes beyond that, and it takes action from booking an appointment, collecting information, or creating a ticket. Sawt gets it done and integrates smoothly with your system. So it's like an AI agent as well. It's not just an AI voice that talks to you. Santiago, what do you think?
There's actually an LP of ours. He's a founder, an angel in Latam, and he founded Vozy, VOZY. In Spanish, it's Sawt, voice with a Y, and they're already at Series A, basically for call centers, and basically focused on that sort of automation of customer support. And their greatest experience is, like, we have lots of colloquialisms in Colombia, and even it's not only by country, it's by region. So if you go specifically to a specific, and we call them the departments or state or province, they have their own accent, they have their own phrases. And then when you call this customer support, you don't feel like you're talking with a robot. You feel like you're talking with someone that speaks your like if it's your aunt or your uncle answering the phone. And I think that is relevant. The customer experience is fantastically changed when you feel you're talking, that the technology adapts to you and you have to adapt to it. I mean, I've always thought that I speak differently to ChatGPT. I try to enunciate and pronunciate with much more detail. Being able to talk naturally, definitely, I think is a relevant update.
Okay. So Jamie had to leave us, so I'll take his role now with the last story. Lean Technologies gains regulatory approval under the UAE's Open Finance Framework. So Lean Technology, the financial infrastructure provider serving MENA, among other companies like Spare, has received in-principle approval, IPA, from the Central Bank of the UAE under the country's newly launched Open Finance Framework, positioning it among the first fintechs to operate within the new regime. So this is big news for us in the MENA region. I know Saudi has been working on a framework. The UAE is doing that already, and many other countries in the region are trying to do something similar. And with this, Lean is now kind of building played style rails in the region. They're already powering big names, like if you know the Kareem is the Uber of the Middle East, Tabi, Talabat, we talked about before. But now with this formal licensing coming, is this the start of like a defensible infrastructure? All with these licenses now coming into all of these companies, will this be a huge competition in your own markets? If you have seen companies doing something similar, how did they manage the competition from others or new players?
I can talk about how things happen in Latin America and
Okay.
how these frameworks have been implemented. So famously and or infamously, Colombia has the worst open finance infrastructure regulation, extremely adverse for competition, extremely centered in, on one side, protecting the financial consumer, and on the other side, protecting also big banks and big infrastructure that are trying to strategically be defensible to new innovations. And likewise, the fintech association and the fintech scene in Colombia is only second to Brazil, perhaps, and it's one of the most active places for innovation and new strategies. And I believe that's an interesting paradox or contradiction, is when you have very stringent laws and very stringent restrictions, then in scarcity that breeds creativity, and you start trying to challenge the regulations by creating new technologies, new solutions, and that's been forcing regulators to update. That's been forcing them to create channels for open banking, and banks themselves have become very active investors, CVCs, and acquirers. And most of exits in Colombia, at least, do come from banking entities. So every time there's been this floodgate that's opening, I think it lets those older companies that have been struggling in adverse conditions, they sort of have a breather, and then they ride that wave out. So my hypothesis is, if that's how it's been working on our geographies in our region, I'm guessing that in the UAE that's going to help unblock all those fintech startups and help them move much faster. But not necessarily regulation induces creativity or induces innovation, right? So it's the other way around. For me, it's the need in the market generates that opportunity, and it's regulation that's sort of catching up to get things working. Maybe incentivizing isn't as successful as permitting what people already want to do.
Mian, did you invest in any open financing companies, fintechs?
That's a very good question. Actually, a lot of my network and LPs, we are actually coming from fintech, aka like a payments, and also like a crypto background. So to see such like a regulation proof is always like a green signal for a lot of like relevant renovations. To anchor back UCD address, I think it's always like innovation comes first, and the market get a little bit hyped. To mitigate the risk for open market, the regulator come in to introduce some regulation to actually to stabilize the market as well. We see a few cases, maybe relevant, maybe not, just still share to see, we're deeply know the ecosystem in Hong Kong, Singapore, and US, their regulations around cryptocurrency. How the shape of the regulation shaped is really actually shape how the market reacted to the asset itself as well. So I think I don't know per se for too much knowledge about this like lean technology, we're very looking forward to see how the MENA's version of such a open finance network gonna work, gonna unfold. And I think this is gonna be a world-class example for such cases.
My reflection, Ahmad, on all this, on one hand, open banking has absolutely led to some infrastructure unicorns, right? So there is an upside. There is a very clear upside. The potential other side of the story is, and this is a question to which I do not have an answer, so it's an open-ended, but will open banking commoditize eventually? Is it something that either more licenses will be issued, or just, some of the unicorns, some of the bigger players from other markets will start entering countries or regions that were not their original turf, so to speak? And for them, how fast could Lean perhaps expand their approvals beyond UAE? How can they perhaps get the approvals for Egypt, for Saudi Arabia, for Jordan, for other countries, right? And so perhaps, and thinking from a strategy perspective, the way for them to defend themselves is with ecosystem partnerships, with the existing banks, with the existing fintechs. Of course, just like we were talking about Sawt, perhaps being local and speaking, the local language, the local dialect, having those local connections could be super useful for creating a defensible resource or a defensible approach for them. And my reflection and my hope, because I always like to invest in the business within the business, right? So they're doing something that is proven, and that's great. How else can I, in the medium run, in 2 to 5 years, how can I create other business opportunities after I've unlocked all this? And for me, my question would be, looking at the business within the business, how can they layer additional services from KYC, AML, credit scoring, and build a more hard to replicate stack within the UAE is what I would be looking at.
You kind of touched on my last question for today, which is, as an investor, when you hear this news, there's a new open finance framework approved by the country. What kind of startups or ideas or applications you would invest in this new framework? Is it budgeting? Is it open? Is it credit rating, like you mentioned, Philipe? Embedded payment? What ideas would you invest in?
My first reaction is financial inclusion. It's something that most markets, from the very mature to the underdeveloped markets, have had a rough time dealing with. So anything that addresses financial inclusion, for me, it's a no-brainer, because you basically open up eventually a lot of different new users for the other existing services. So it's great from a policy standpoint. It's great from a market standpoint. It's great from an exit perspective in the long run as well. And besides that, I think my take would be different, Ahmad. That maybe, and this is a question that I always like to ask startups when I am interviewing their clients in the due diligence process. I ask the clients, what would you do if this startup X didn't exist? And a lot of the times the answer is, well, maybe I'll go to the competitor, or maybe yada yada. And most of the times it's not super enthusiastic. But the answer I really love to hear is, ooh, that's a tough one. I don't know if I just create it myself. And if we have something, a new service in finance where we get this type of question, I would invest it, no doubt.
That's a great way to look at it. Santiago.
From Meridian 75, we have 4 verticals. So EdTech, FinTech, Future Work, and Health Tech. So FinTech is one of the main challenges, but our thesis is based on human-centered investing, right? It's what sort of infrastructure really serves fundamental human needs. And what we're looking especially at is those sort of solutions that help users jump onto the financial industry. In the US, the amount of available lending, for example, is 1.2 times GDP. In Argentina, that's 10%. 10% of GDP is right now being lent. And that sort of gaps of updating to having financial inclusion, having access to capital, having access to credit, to payments. In Colombia, only 5 million people of 50 million population have access to credit card or digital payments, and only 20 million have actually a bank account or have access to the financial sector. So there's huge opportunity there. And one of our portfolio companies right now was called Callo, and what they're doing is they're helping automize the management of assets in the leasing category. So leasing, that renting out an asset with the option to buy is usually very commonplace in the West, but or in the US or in the other markets. In Latin America, it's still fairly new. It's still a fairly new financial structure. And what they noticed is that banks and financial institutions are opening up this new product and managing these services manually, by using Excel and 30-50 lawyers, and that ends up being complex. So those sort of solutions that help distribute financial products and making it easier for the financial institutions, for the consumer, for companies, small businesses, streamline that access. We invest in those companies on the spot.
We actually come from, like I mentioned, from like a more crypto native background. So to that's like our like DNA, or say like is we like to say what's the bridge from the open finance network towards the blockchain technology layer of it. How the technology can be bring in to increase the efficiency of current financial system. In general, that's the mission. So to anchor back a little bit, it's also a last case. So we're talking about is the AI agent. We're thinking about like how to actually introduce more AI agent to current financial system for tradings, for payments, for client, for compliance, to the data checking, everything, to how you actually use AI to increase the efficiency, but replace maybe the current labor cost, and also just fasten the process. So that's for us is where we're bringing to perspective to see how the blockchain going to play in this future. Yeah,
Makes sense. Okay, well, before we wrap up, a big thanks to Okta and Milkstraw for sponsoring today's episode. If you want to get paid faster, access financing, and automate your receivable process, head to weareokta.com and take control of your accounts receivable today. And if your AWS bills are getting you down, check out Milkstraw. It can help you find hidden savings of up to 75%, freeing up capital for growth, hiring, or building faster. See how much you will save in 60 seconds at milkstraw.ai. With that, thank you so much, Mian, Philipe, and Santiago. We hope to have you again soon on the podcast. Thank you.